I normally come up with this opening bit of After Schmoe prior to seeing the live show. The live show actually destroyed what I was going to do. I was going to start off, I was going to ask you, what do you think your 300th Schmoes Know Show predictions are? What do you think they're going to do? I was going to let you answer, which I'll still let you do it. But I was just going to immediately reply that I thought that it would be the last show.
You thought it was just going to be the last show ever, like they're not going to do anymore.
I thought the 300th episode of the Schmoes Know Show was just going to be the last one. We would hear a declaration. That's weird. That they only cared about Collider now, and that the Schmoes Know Show was no longer going to be a thing, at least in its form.
And that they were going to pass it on to us, right?
Yes, that's what I was going to do. Yes, they were going to pass it on to us. The Wangers were still going to be our producers. They weren't going to budge at all.
Our employees.
But I can't make that joke anymore because people would call me out saying, why would they do that? I mean, this was actually one of the best shows that they've done in a long time. And I would respond, you're absolutely right. But we will talk about this show later. Go ahead. Do you have a 300th prediction, by the way, or am I catching you off guard?
I mean, I don't think they have a 300th episode prediction. Like, I don't think they could. I think it's sneaking up on them. I think it's slowly but surely coming down the pipe. They're making these random changes, which, you know, coming up on a milestone show, I don't know if you necessarily want to do, but they certainly pulled this episode off. I mean, I don't know, man. I think you just bring back a bunch of people. I think you make it more of like an old school sort of classic show with classic personalities. I think you make it 3 hours. I think that's for sure.
You maybe bring back Katie Sackhoff, get Tiffany Smith, Alicia Malone. They're all back. You want to go 3 hours?
Dennis Zhang.
I think we are. I was going to make a joke
John
about
Campia.
Umberto.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to make none of those people were actually in the old crew, but that's fine. True. I was going to make an Umberto joke today myself. So I'm glad that you got that out there. I don't even remember what prompted it, but I remember being in the shower thinking about making an Umberto joke.
I want to say one thing about Umberto. This is funny. So I do have a I do have a history lesson coming up today, and it's hilarious. I'm still in the Toad Hop days, you know, going through episode by episode, and man, they just loved them some El Mayembe back in the day. Let me tell you what, he was calling in every single week. How times have changed.
I think it was more of El Mayembe loving them.
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, back then there really wasn't anything like what it's like today. You know, he probably wasn't not that he wasn't in demand, but at least for something like that. I mean, the Schmoes Know Show, it was kind of one of a kind at that time.
Did they force him to ask a question, or did they allow him to just kind of talk free form?
A little bit of both, honestly. My favorite thing, at least looking back on it, is how Josh McCouga started early with his thoughts on Umberto. Like, basically, he was basically saying that he had to essentially do like a training day style thing to get his scoops. Like, he had to do drugs in order to get them and stuff like that. And it was actually pretty hilarious.
Oh, I remember why I was going to bring up Umberto, but I'll do that later after the theme song. Welcome to After Schmoe, the recap show that none of the Schmoes actually listen to. My name is Ryan Snelling.
My name is Jaye Williams. The dog's on the couch. In fact, before I continue on with that joke, I actually commented on a picture of baby Cal on the couch on Mark's Instagram, and Mark Riley's Instagram, and I then realized much later that he might not know who I am, and he'd be like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
That's fair. He probably knows who you are. We'll get to that in a minute because I'm going to address all of the Schmoes in our show here later on.
I've got to talk about Mark Riley's Instagram page. There's some pretty ridiculous videos going on there.
I wanted to bring up real quick. I actually wanted to do it at the top of the show, but we were running too long. There's a lot of off-air discussion between Jay and I about having guests on our show, and I am of the mindset, and I've been pretty vocal about it. I haven't wavered much, but I've been pretty set in my ways as far as just not having guests unless... well, for one, Mark and Kristian are always welcome. I mean, the doors are always open if they want to come on. But as far as like having guest hosts, I've tampered with it before, and it didn't really vibe, at least in my opinion. And we talked about having some of the other crew members on. I don't know if it's worth it because they don't even listen. But I was thinking about it today. Like, if we are going to have someone on the show, I want it to be something that only we can bring to the table, because I know Beardo's doing his own thing, and I'm not really interested in having anyone on to just talk about their rivalry in the Schmoedown. That doesn't really interest me as far as having a conversation with them. But one thing I did want, and this actually this was sent to me in a tweet from a friend of ours in Schmoeville. He did a Google search of Tom Dagnino, and actually he included Alcon, which is Alcon Entertainment. The Google search popped up an ebook result. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So if you type in Tom Dagnino Alcon, because that's where he used to work, there's a book called Heartbreak Yoga, and it's a hot pink cover.
Heartbreak or Heartbreak?
Heartbreak.
Oh, you said Heartbreak.
Chris Hartwell Break
I kind of like Heartbreak. That's like a new band name.
Heartbreak Yoga. Yeah, and it's a hot pink cover. It's got a lady doing a yoga thing on the beach. You continue to scroll through, and Tom Dagnino is in the quotes, like promoting the book inside. And this is legitimately him, like the same guy that we know as Finstock. His quote in this book, Heartbreak Yoga, is, quote, "Love is ... a form of circular logic," unquote.
Whatever that means.
This is 100% real. And I want to thank our buddy John for bringing this to my attention. So what I'm getting to is, if we had a guest on the show, I would love to have Brett on as well. We talked about that. I want Tom Dagnino, but as Tom Dagnino. Like, and I don't mean the Tom Dagnino that we see on screen. If we were to have him on the show, I want the guy that has never been heard from by anybody but the people that he knows personally. I was fascinated by this thing. I want the guy who puts quotes in yoga books. I think it would be absolutely fascinating. I remember very early on when I was doing the Schmoeville podcast, and Kristian was listening to it, and he was telling me what he liked and what he didn't like. He happened to mention that he listened to the show on his way on some trip with Finstock, and Finstock like had his take on my show, and I've always thought back to this and been fascinated by it, because I wanted to know what that actually meant, because I knew that I would never ever hear about it. So anyway, that just fascinated me. Do you have anything to say about this?
I mean, look, I think Finstock I think Tom Dagnino in general is an enigma. I think he is a very interesting individual. I mean, look, I just want to talk to him about Drake, Kanye, Yeezys, his shoe collection, all of those things. This is a guy who is legitimately embedded in the pop culture zeitgeist. I can smell it on him. I want to know what he smells like. I'm sure it would be some sort of concoction of patchouli and Drakkar Noir, but I like that. I like that musk in a man.
I know that he did an episode with the Harloff podcast, and everyone thought it was fake because it sounded like he was just playing a character. His stories were outrageous, and I know that that's been done. but people thought it was fake. I would actually like to have a conversation that isn't more story driven, but I would like to hear about like his time in the industry and what he actually does now and what he thinks of this character and why he did it to begin with. That's the stuff that I want to hear about, which I don't think really happened on Harloff Podcast because that was just a different type of show. But I'm very intrigued by that. While we're on the topic of it, fellow Schmoevillian, who we all know and love, Kristen Smith, should be joining us next week on After Schmoe. I didn't even tell you that, Jay. You're just now learning that.
So is this After Schmoe proper? She's going to be joining us on the full thing.
Yes, she's going to be doing what we're doing now, but with us.
Well, I don't know if I like that.
I'm sorry, but it's going to happen.
All right.
We love you, Kristen. Or at least I do. I don't know if
I
Jay does,
I love me some Kristen Smith, but could she hang?
Oh, I think she can hang.
All right.
Hey, she works with Take 3, and we know that Take 3 is endorsed by Kristian Harloff, so we know that she can hang.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Chris Doman. Came all the way down to Kentucky to not just to hang out with us, but we confirmed that later on. What a nice guy. I think he gave my phone number away to somebody, but that's nor here nor there.
I saw a Facebook message that was hidden that he sent me from like a year ago.
Well,
so,
you don't like communicating with people, do you?
Felt kind of bad about that. Anyway, so let's talk about a Collider. Okay. First thing I want to do is give a heartfelt congratulations to John Rocha. Now, here's what I want to say about John Rocha. John Rocha, and I've told him this before, he has a way of inspiring me. He has a way of keeping me hustling and grinding because I've seen all of the work that he's done to put himself in the position that he is in. And not even just with the Schmoes. I know how hard it is. If you heard his background on the first episode of Outlaw Nation, for one, it's fascinating. The fact that he changed his name to John Rocha, just so people had a different perception of him. That's fascinating to me. To be a voice actor and an actor and all the struggles that come with that. And then you get to where we are now, and sort of where in this movie blogging space, but however you want to describe it, to where he was called up one day to appear on Screen Junkies Movie Fights, and that was sort of it for him. And to see him appear more and more on Collider, that's been great. He got to host one of the recap shows before, and he did Game of Thrones last year. It's just been really great to watch him grow. And, of course, we had top 10 and stuff, everything he was doing with Schmoes Know. But it's just been really great to see him finally get the recognition that he deserves. And he deserves a shit ton of credit for getting the Schmoedown to where it is today. Because as far as I'm concerned, he was the first real big character in the Schmoedown, and he paved the way. So it's just really exciting, and John Rocha is a friend of the show. He's a friend to me. He's a friend of Jay. I just want to make sure that we're all giving him our heartfelt congratulations, because John Rocha is the man. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, look, I think the thing about John Rocha that I appreciate more than anything is that he represents not just people like you and I, but just anybody in general out there that does have not just a dream, but is legitimate. Because a lot of people have dreams, right? A lot of people dream about doing something bigger in their lives, but very few people actually execute on those dreams and those passions to work their fucking ass off. Because you and I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but we work very, very hard, and it's good to see somebody like John Rocha, who has constantly grinded, constantly strived to achieve his goals, to actually see that finally come to fruition. That's fantastic. But look, the one thing I'll say about it is that this is a guy who sort of prided himself on being a little bit of a free agent, kind of bouncing around here and there. I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to take complete advantage of this opportunity. But you know, I hope to God that he doesn't lose that incredible edge that he's developed over the years, not only as the outlaw, but just his persona as John Rocha in general. I think that he has an edge, and that's what people love about him. That's why people have fallen in love with him, because he does have that free agent sort of mentality. Yeah, I hope it doesn't really slow down from there, but I have all the faith in the world in him. He is a fantastic podcaster, a fantastic presenter on screen as well. And congratulations to you, John Rocha.
I hope that he doesn't turn into a straight company man like Kristian has ever since going full-time at Collider.
Yeah, be more Brett, less Kristian.
So yeah, and also he's been kicking ass writing for the tracking board. I've been following his articles there too. So he's just he's so well deserved because he's so articulate and intelligent, and so many people have made the joke that he's going to add gravitas. He's going to be a great personality at Collider. He has been this whole time, but now that he's there, can't wait to see more from my boy John Rocha. Let's talk about comic book shopping. I think that Mark Fernandez and the team over there heard our cries for more Robert Meyer Burnett.
For more will.i.am? Okay, Black Eyed Peas? Okay.
Yeah. For more Robert Meyer Burnett, I guess we burned him out. The Daily Heroes and the comic book shopping, he has not been on this week, but we did get will.i.am and Taboo. Jay, what'd you think of it?
They retired the Robert Meyer Burnett Sight and Sound shirt / jersey because it was overkill for him. Look, this is exactly why comic book shopping is so fucking great and so fantastic. Look, I'm not the biggest Black Eyed Peas fan. For those that don't know, I'm a massive, massive music fan. Like, that's my thing. I'm the music guy on Sight and Sound.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I've got Tom and Dagnito and I, we share a common affection for Drake. Black Eyed Peas not something I'm really that interested in. So when they popped up, I was kind of like, I don't know how into this I'm going to be. Let me just say this. will.i.am is a presence in and of himself. In fact, if anybody watched The Defiant Ones, he was very prominently featured on that documentary, which has gained a lot of buzz. Documentary on HBO, 4-part thing. And that's all well and good, but the one that surprised me in this episode was fucking Taboo. Taboo was amazing on this thing. Him and John Rocha had a vibe. They had a connection. John Schnepp. There's a lot of Johns going on. Rocha, Camp, all these people. John Schnepp and Taboo had a fantastic interaction, a fantastic chemistry together. The fact that he had all of this pre-existing knowledge and passion and love, not just for comic books, but also just geek nostalgia in general, how he was talking about Shogun Warriors and toys and that sort of more of his realm of things. Like, I really, really, really appreciated it. And I thought it was a fantastic episode for an episode of comic book shopping that I wasn't really at least excited for when I first saw it. But that's why this is a series that you need to tune in to every single episode. And I said it on Twitter. This is a type of show that you watch multiple times because it's great to watch the first time just for the entertainment factor, but it's a whole other thing to actually watch second and third time viewings just to sort of catch every little detail that they talk about, because John Schnepp can just throw out all kinds of just little details and factoids and nuggets of information. I enjoyed it, man. What did you think of the episode?
I did enjoy it as well. I'm pretty much in the same boat. I respect the Black Eyed Peas. I really do. I am not really a big fan of them, though, as far as like following them, knowing all their songs, whatever. I know the hits. Give me the hits. But yeah, I was a little skeptical going in, just like, okay, this might not be my thing. And it wasn't my thing in the terms of I'm not interested in collectibles and toys, but it was still a great episode because we always want our guests to be involved and to be present. And he went above and beyond that, really got into what Stepp was talking about, but also brought his interest to the table as well. So that was really great. I'm very intrigued by the project because, again, Schnepp made the point. It turns out that they actually do know a lot about right. comics, and that's the part that we haven't brought up yet, is that they were there because they were promoting a comic. So that's fascinating to me. I think that's very awesome. I remember when the Backstreet Boys did that, teamed up with Burger King.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people do those sort of music comic book crossovers. Coheed and Cambria is another one that was very, very popular. What's your problem with Coheed?
They're annoying.
Not really. He does have some weird hair, though. Why does it look like that? But regardless, you do bring up an interesting point, the collectible side of comic book shopping, because it does, let's just be honest, right? We go into comic book stores, and yes, the comic books are a big thing, but I would say the collectibles are equally as much a part of comic book shopping, or at least going to a comic book store, as the comic books are. And I'm finally glad that we got to see that. I think we might have touched on it from time to time in previous episodes, but this was, and it wasn't even a main focus of the episode. There was just a little tiny block of conversation. But, for me personally, like, I really do enjoy that. And I love the deep dives and, the deep cuts and comic books and stuff like that. Some things that I don't know much about, but the collectibles are a whole other thing to really grab casual viewers' nostalgia, so to speak. So I wouldn't mind to see more of a focus on that in the future, at least for a small part of the episodes.
No, I'm always in favor of the educational aspects of any of this programming, whether it's Jedi Council or comic book shopping or whatever. So I'm not saying by any means don't do that, because I was fascinated by it, because I think the last time that they did it was maybe the Lincoln Park episode when they went into the vault and saw all those old comics. I remember them doing that.
Yeah, that was sort of for people that, if you watch sneaker shopping, they usually have one small segment where they go to the sneaker stores to, like, their rare finds. They'll show the Yeezys, they'll show whatever, the Air Mags or anything like that has sort of some rarity to them. They never really let people buy those, which I don't. Let me ask you this question: what is your take on the haul at the end of every episode? Like, this was a gigantic haul. I think they walked away with, like, was it $500 worth of stuff?
Yeah, it was over
Holy
500.
shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I like to see, okay? Like, it's all great to get the education stuff, but I want some baller fucking comic book hauls, all right? I want the shit that I will never be able to buy. I want these guys to walk out with issues 1 through 5 of X-Men that are signed by whoever. I don't know, fucking have Robert Meyer Burnett sign it. I don't care. But I want this. I want the stuff, because he's involved with X-Men, right? Bryan Singer. I want to see some things that I can't get. Like, it's great to know, I can go pick this up in my store, but I want that hot shit, okay? I want the hot shit.
Yeah, I think it was that Walking Dead omnibus that probably cost $100 alone.
He got Iron Fist issue 1. That's the thing that I noticed.
Cool.
Well, is it? I mean, Iron Fist, the stock in Iron Fist, not really high, but that's cool. That's cool.
What was the question? Oh, my take on the hauls. I think it's cool because I use Wednesdays are a big day for me, Jay, because I use comic book shopping and that episode of Heroes, that pull list episode, to determine what I should be looking at and looking to. So Wednesday is my big money spending day when it comes to comics. So that's just another factor into me blowing my money.
I do have one more thing to say about this episode that I actually thought was really, really cool. The fact that we got this sort of very small history lesson between the history of rap and hip hop and the connection with pop culture, at least superhero comic book stuff style things. I think they showed, like, an Africa Bambaataa album cover. They talked about the Wu-Tang Clan and their fascination with comic books, as well as just martial arts films and stuff in general. And I love that. That's something that a lot of people don't realize about rap and hip hop, as much as it is about, swagger and being cool and buying this and buying that and money and everything, that there is a passion and a love for nerd culture buried deep inside of rap and hip hop. And I love that this episode sort of showcased that. It's sort of one of the fun unsung heroes, I think, of the music genre. And I'm just glad that it got highlighted.
It was also interesting that this was a little bit loosey-goosey because they had to start filming at a particular time. So Snep and will.i.am are shown at the beginning. Taboo comes in later. It's very apparent that he lives much farther than 3 blocks away.
Well, I mean, I just live right over there. I just live down the road, so.
Yeah. Okay, so next week Larson or Michael Rooker?
I don't know, but they've been promoting the hell out of a Michael Rooker episode, which is massive. Like, in terms of just straight relevance right now, Michael Rooker might be the biggest person they've had on the show. Do you agree with that?
The biggest person that they've had on the show now, I would say Shinoda.
See, I disagree with that, and that's purely down to, again, relevance right now, right this second, right? So Linkin Park, obviously a massive, massive band, but, you know, I mean, they're not the most relevant. I'm talking in terms of 10 out of 10 relevance. You've got Michael Rooker from Walking Dead. Obviously, he's not on the show as much right now.
I mean, obviously with Guardians, he's more relevant. But,
people talking about
well,
Yondu.
Actually, unfortunately, Linkin Park actually might be more relevant right now.
Well, right this second. But when the episode came out, that wasn't the case.
Right. Okay, I guess you could debate it, but because I mean, I know people know who Yondu is, but I don't think the common person knows who Michael Rooker is as an actor. But
agree to disagree, but I'm going with my pick.
Okay. And
why is the music guy going with the movie pick and the movie guy is going with the music pick? What a weird episode.
Yeah, that is weird. And by the way, who did I say? McFarlane. Anyway, is it Todd McFarlane? Yeah. He's coming. I barely know who this guy is.
What?
Todd McFarlane is coming up, but not next week. I don't give a shit about Spawn. What?
He also drew one of the most famous Spider-Man covers of all time.
Oh, good. And then of course I tweeted at Schnepp and friend of the show Mark Fernandez that they should get because Schnepp mentioned that he went to, I think he said he went to college with is it Kevin Heffernan from Super Troopers? Yeah. And so I tweeted at them that they should get Heffernan on for an episode of Comic Book Shopping, and Schnepp said that it was actually a good idea and that he will take me up on it. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Who knew that Schnepp was good friends with that guy? He's going to be around our parts pretty soon. You know, I've never seen Super Troopers. Never seen it.
He's going to be in our neck of the woods tomorrow, actually.
That's right.
Doing stand-up, so.
Yeah, good call.
Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett who listened to last week's show. I think he appreciated it. We appreciate you, buddy. Do you want to talk about anything else in the Collider space before we move on?
I did just want to point out the fact that, as I move my microphone, I did want to point out the fact that, you know, it's weird. We don't really have a lot to say about the shows that they do every single week, and it's sort of repeated unless something crazy happens, like Mark takes his pants off in the middle of a show, which hasn't happened yet to my knowledge.
That's why our show won't be 2.5 hours.
Exactly. So, but one thing I have been paying attention to, just some of the little minor details here and there of some of the shows and movie talk. First of all, I think I could be wrong about this, but it used to be back in the day that they had this regular rotation of people who are always going to be on. I don't know if a rotation exists anymore for the show. I mean, from time to time, I think you might be able to see one, like Mark might not be able to do the Thursday and Friday shows or whatnot, whatever the case may be. But it's just this random rotating group of people switching seats all the time. Like Kristian used to always sit on that far left seat, I remember. And now he's sort of moving all over the place. You got Perry taking his little line. What's his line?
Perry taking his
line, his little mic check line. I forget what it is.
You started that sentence like you were calling Perry a he, and I was really confused.
No, how dare you?
I'm with you.
Perry pants. Anyways, I've just noticed lately that the show has just been very, very laid back and more fun and no disregard to anything in the past, but it's just like, it just seems more loose. Like they're cursing more from time to time. They might tell a dick joke here or there. And I appreciate that. I can enjoy that.
It's because you actually have a host who has a sense of humor about himself.
Well, how dare you?
That's one thing. That's one thing I've noticed about Campia is that, and I have a friend like this that, I realized one day that nobody calls him out or makes fun of him.
Is this me? Are you talking about me?
No, a friend I used to go to high school with. I realized I'm like, I poke fun at everyone, but for some reason he is never a target, and I don't know why. And that's what it was with Campia. Like I just feel like he had zero sense of humor about himself, whereas Mark is obviously bringing the party, bringing the fun. But that kind of goes without saying because I feel like that is a very obvious statement. But you were absolutely right to bring up the rotation thing. I know that at least before. Wendy was in charge of booking the guest co-hosts and making sure that they did that. And before, you're absolutely right. It seemed to be a set rotation. Like we knew that like Kristian was only like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday at one point. But yeah, I don't think there's any. They are of course scheduled, but as far as having a set rotation, I think that's kind of out the window.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too because for a little bit I was like missing Kristian on Movie Talk. Like I felt like he was barely on there at all, maybe like once, and then all of a sudden like he just started being on there a lot more. Like I think he even hosts this week, so it's just nice. It's just nice to always constantly be guessing, and it seems like they're sort of building up different people's personas, so to speak. Like T is somebody that's new to being a regular member of the panel, and it's just nice. I really appreciate it. I like what they're doing.
Yes, great job as always. The channel is flourishing, and it is well on its way to getting 400,000 subscribers. I cannot wait for that. I think that. Oh, by the way, we'd be dumb if we didn't mention. We know that the Ultimate Schmoedown tournament is going on right now. A week full of great matches. Jay, what's been your favorite match this week?
My favorite match this week was I'm a big Team Trek fan, just in general, mainly because I don't like Star Trek at all, but I still find myself rooting for that team. That match was a good match. Scott Mance in general. Scott Mance is growing on me. It's funny because when I started, why are you laughing? Are you laughing?
Everyone off air prior to the show, Jaye Williams told me that he had not watched any of the Schmoedowns this week. So I set him up for failure, and he proved me wrong.
Why is that? Just because I'm an awesome podcaster and I can always,
And now we're going to leave it ambiguous as to if you actually watch the show. I like your style. We have no clue if you actually watched it or not. But please keep going if you still have it.
Yeah, for sure. So Mance, when I first started watching Collider stuff and Schmoe stuff in general, I thought Mance was kind of just a joke. Like I thought he was just some character person. But I mean, no, this guy, I fucking love Scott Mance. Not only do I love how passionate he is about movies, I also love how passionate he is about Schmoeville. This guy loves Schmoeville, okay? He loves coming around these parts. All right, Jason Inman, I love a good Jason Inman take, regardless of if I agree with him all the time or not. He's got this confidence about him, and I actually think Jason Inman is sort of an unsung hero of the Schmoedown in general. I don't have any stats to back that up. Of course, Frank Janis doesn't work for us, so we have no
Frank
Janish. I've never talked to that guy once. How am I supposed to know how to pronounce his name? He doesn't know how to spell my name. I'm just kidding. Shout out to you, Frank. Anyways, where does this go? Yeah, Team Trek, they're great. All right, what do you think of the tournament?
Yeah, Team Trek was definitely my favorite match, just because that's the team that I'm rooting for. Like, I remember seeing whoever the match was with yesterday. It was Team Action versus somebody else, and Kristian's getting mad because I don't remember. But Team Action versus whoever. Deep Cuts, yes. I remember watching at the top of that match, they sort of had the flashbacks to one of Deep Cuts' other matches. And the two matches that they showed via flashback, like the road leading up to this point, I didn't at all remember those matches. And I have seen every Schmoedown that has come out since I have hosted this show, since it started taking place at Collider. They showed those clips, and I just didn't remember seeing them at all.
Yeah. Well, we're getting so much Schmoedown content in general, right? I mean,
yeah.
They can't all be Rocha v. Harloff. You know what I'm saying? They can't all have that sort of je ne sais quoi about them. And
I'm just stating. It's just an observation. I'm not at all criticizing.
No, I know
anything.
for sure. But look, there's a lot of die-hard Schmoedown fans that would probably be like, "Well, how dare you? What do you mean you don't remember this? Blah blah blah." But like, look, I mean, there's a lot of matches. Okay, we're not Frank the Stat Man. We don't even have a stat man. Kevin Marks, he doesn't work for us.
We will probably do some more coverage on that later on as the matches get bigger and bigger. But anyway, for all your Schmoedown needs, check out the Schmoedown Rundown on the Schmoes Know podcast feed or on the SK Plus YouTube channel. Please subscribe to both. Don't just like one. Please like both, and you can listen to however you want there in the moment. You can also check out shows like Top 10, Don't Be a Beardo, JTE Movie Thinks, Harloff Podcast, all those shows. Also, I had a dream that Sight and Sound was pushed off, by the way. Did that actually happen, or is that a dream?
No, we've been expecting it for quite some time, but we were told we could just hang out. You know, we're like the guys at the party that they just like being there. They just like that we're hanging around. No, what's up with there was no Don't Be a Beardo this week after coming off of an incredible episode with Ken. You know, I love Beardo with all my heart. I think his podcast is fantastic, but you've got to put out an episode every single week, regardless of a guest or not. You've got to figure out a backup plan. You have to.
Where the fuck is his episode with Robert Meyer Burnett?
Where's his episode with Ryan Snelling and Jaye Williams? That's my question.
Actually, you know what? I don't want Beardo to have an episode with Robert Meyer Burnett because I want that to happen here. Before we start off talking about the live show, I want to go ahead and get into your history lesson. You mentioned earlier you're still in the Toad Hop days. I'd love to hear what your history lesson is.
Yeah, this comes all the way from May of 2013, still in the Toad Hop days. How do you feel about Tiffany Smith? Big Tiffany Smith fan?
She was my first crush when watching the Schmoes Know content. I revealed that in one of the earliest Schmoeville podcast episodes. She is arguably the one of the biggest personalities, much like Alicia alone. They are massive personalities. I mean, she works directly with Kevin Smith and Greg Grunberg. And if you don't know who that is, it's J.J. Abrams' childhood best friend. He's very involved in this community as well, as far as geek culture and the con space and all that kind of stuff. Matt from Heroes. So yeah, I adore her very much, and she's brilliant. Why? What you got for me?
Well, just in general, I mean, look, Tiffany Smith, she's not a regular on the Schmoes Know Show. Would love to see her back at some point, but they put her through the ringer, man. They have, like, at one point they tried to set her up on a date with Finstock, which is just ridiculous. But no, in this particular history lesson episode, we get this story of Christian Harloff needing to call Tiffany Smith and realized that it was early in the morning, but he noticed that she had tweeted already in the morning. So he used that as a sign to actually call her, but she didn't answer the phone. And we sort of get his reaction and all this and all that, his feeling towards people leaving him voicemails. My question to you before we get into that, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about knowing someone is capable of picking up the phone or answering a text message and them just electing not to do that? How do you feel about that?
Oh, it drives me absolutely insane. I mean, I have specific friends that I know. Anytime I'm hanging out with them, their face is glued to their phone screen. Anytime they don't answer me, text me back, what have you, I get so mad. But, I mean, that's where we are now anyway. Even Christian Harloff has his phone at the live show desk when he's on air. I mean, everyone has their phones with them all the time. It drives me nuts when I don't get a text back, especially if I need something.
All right, well, let's get into the history lesson.
Okay.
I am awake, but I'm a little tired today because someone decided to call me at the butt crack of early.
This is so stupid. This is so stupid. I don't want to. You know what? We're going to ask Schmoeville what they think. Okay. So here's what happened. So I called Tiffany yesterday because I heard
this morning.
Yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I called her yesterday because I had heard some news and it was comic book related, so I wanted to tell her about it.
Well, that sounds like a great friend so far.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very nice.
Yeah.
And so I called her and she didn't get through. So she called me back.
Did you leave a message?
No, I did not. I don't do that because I feel if you see that I called you, you know that I called.
Oh, trust me. I've listened to your away message, and this guy hates. Have you ever called Kristian and just, hey, you reached Kristian Hall off. You want to leave a message? I ain't listening to it. Text me. But 2013, guy.
I see the you see the number. You know that it's there.
Your phone is off though.
Listen to me. So here's so the thing is so
you didn't get through. So
she calls me back. She calls me back.
I called him back and I text you back.
Right, and I didn't get back to her, so I felt bad.
Okay.
So this morning, I was like, okay, I'm not going to call her. It's too early. And then I see, oh, she tweeted something. I'm
Hold
like,
on.
she's awake.
Twitter,
Correction.
you tweet something in the morning.
I retweeted something.
But you weren't dead when you did it. You were
I wasn't
awake.
dead. I sometimes wake up, look at my phone, check my Twitter, go back to sleep.
She was conscious when she retweeted, okay?
Yeah.
So her feed said that she was actively conscious. So I said, oh, she's awake, so I'm going to call her at 9:10, not 8:50.
It wasn't 9:10.
This is stupid. Anyway, the point of the matter is that I called her and she was like, I'm sleeping. It doesn't matter. If you're tweeting, you're awake. Schmoeville, what do you think? Was she awake because she was tweeting? Let me know.
I got to side with my partner in crime, Kristian, on here because I was also awake at that ungodly hour of the morning because Kristian and I had to do a call-in radio show.
Thank you.
And I was laying in bed the whole time I was on the show.
Right.
Which I
Whatever.
So if
frequently
someone
do.
would have called you, you wouldn't have been pissed off because you've been awake.
I was in bed. I answered the phone.
wasn't
I was out late
pissed.
last night.
I wasn't pissed. I was just groggy. And sometimes when you call in the morning, it takes me a minute to like gather my wits together.
Here's what I think
and
about
I sound like extra manly.
Here's what I think about this.
Hello.
That's how I was like, hello.
So women not only have to get their face on in the morning, they have to get their mouth on.
Well,
Yeah, everyone agrees with me, by the way.
She's
I'll
also-
scroll around the board.
Whatever.
She has
no one
crossed
believes in you.
9,000 followers, which means she has people who tweet for her now.
Stop it. I feel like the
got
goal
millions.
for this year is to get to the 10,000 because on Twitter, this is
happen.
so lame. But where it goes from like 9,000 to when you get to 10, it's like 10K.
10K. You want that. That's
want
the
the
goal.
K.
Now I want everybody who's following her to stop following her. She has
Just kidding.
Just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Here, you know
I'm
what?
going to call you at 6 a.m. tomorrow.
I'll be up. You kidding? I'm
going to call you at
Stop it.
2 a.m.
Enough of this. They're bored. All right. So the Miss Movies tweets in, how old is she? Adults wake up before 8 a.m. You're absolutely right, Miss Movies.
I
All right.
am an adult.
All right. Enough. I'm right. You're wrong.
Oh, maybe one of my favorite history lessons so far. Great work, Jay.
Please stop. Here's why this is terrible. Every time you fake laugh at this, especially that one, sounded like one of your real laughs. Now everyone is going to be questioning if every time you laugh, if it's fake or not. And that bums me out. And especially me. How am I supposed to know if you're real laughing or fake laughing at me?
Oh, you mean like if you say something funny during the rest of the show, you're wondering if I'm actually just prompting fake laughter?
Well, yeah.
Why can't I just ever have a bit on the show? Every time I have a bit on the show, someone calls me out in the comments, keep trying, Snelling. This wasn't funny. Anytime I try to do anything, you immediately call me out, and then there's an awkward conversation about it. I would just love to be known for this thing, have a character built up. Kristian Harloff doesn't want me to be a character. It's frustrating.
I mean, you should be ashamed as a character.
Not at all. That's something you took from me, and I'm mad about it, even though I can't be because I actually stole that from someone else.
I just use the phrase. You're the one that goes on the actual rants. It's okay. I mean,
I know that's what it exactly, and that's where I was coming from. Is that I can't be mad at you for saying it because I copied it myself, but that was something that was going to be my thing on the show. I was going to be the guy who did the rant. You were supposed to play off of it and think that whatever I was saying or doing was ridiculous and without any grounds to be angry or whatever. But then you just took it for yourself, and then it wore off, and that's why I don't do it anymore.
well, I think you should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay, very good. All right, let's get into Schmoes Know Show number 297. It's the fall movie preview, something that Sight and Sound did 2 weeks ago.
That's true. We did, didn't we? I actually thought about that today when I was looking at SK Plus. I was like, oh, they're trying to copy off of us again.
That's right, and we did it in half the time about television and music as well. This was hosted by Kristian Harloff, Mark Ellis, Joelle Monique, and our very own Josh McCouga. Now, Kristian Harloff was quoted as saying in the middle of the episode, it actually reminded me of you. the second that I heard him say it. He says that he doesn't live in the past.
I heard him say the same thing. How many times? Yeah. How many times are they going to be influenced by? Look, if you want us to take over for you, all you have to do is tell us. The writing is on the wall.
What I'm getting at is Kristian still uses this dopey image for his Twitter profile pic. Something that back in the day when he wore beanies, he still do it. Emo things. Kristian. Do what?
It's one of my favorite things. In fact, every time I get a DM from him, before I can even read what he said, I'm like, "We change your picture." My God.
Every time I get a message, I either get really depressed or I just laugh my ass off because I can't. Because it was a conscious decision to do this. Oh, I really like this.
I want to respond with a hotline number. I mean, come on.
That's great. So anyway, he actually does live in the past because he's all about this, and then he changed the entire design of the show to feel like
we're going to get into these notes because I'm covering a lot of stuff.
I'm about to go into it. I just had to get it out of the way because I had a little note to Schmoeville here. We are going to talk about the setup, but we're not going to dwell on the setup because Kristian is right. Ultimately, it does not matter. It doesn't. It doesn't matter to us. So the people that in Schmoeville who are ranting and what word do I want? Protesting about this decision.
Were people really protesting? Is this a thing?
I neglected to look at the YouTube comments, but they mentioned that people were having a problem with it, and Cobster mentioned it as well during the episode. So just stop. Find something else. Go read up on some Warner Brothers Ben Affleck news. Go put your time into that. Because this new setup thing is just not a big deal at all.
I want to, while we're on this subject real quick, I want to point something out, a little factoid that I discovered this week as well. You know how sometimes the voices of few can seem like the overwhelming voice of all? Like they're like, oh, people don't like the setup, when it's only been like a handful of people who have mentioned it. You know how we sort of misconstrue that from time to time?
Yeah, it reminds me of like the few people that didn't like my phone call last week. Yeah. It actually kind of exaggerated, though.
Yeah, because mostly. Yeah. Right. So this little fact that I discovered. Remember I know this is off topic, but remember a few weeks ago when Ed Sheeran was on Game of Thrones and there was this whole big uproar about it and all this stuff?
Oh, that was awful.
Okay.
Let me just say it was obviously something that they did for Maisie Williams. Oh, that's great. But you obviously detracted everything, all the momentum that you had building up with this penultimate season. Everything that you had building up to this, you ruin it with a wink at the camera moment with Ed Sheeran. Okay. Of course people are going to be pissed. It's their beloved Game of Thrones, and you give me Ed Sheeran. If you want to have cameos, that's fine. I know they've been doing it all along. Great. I'm all about it. Season 2 of Lost, Season 3, very guilty of having celebrity cameos for the sake of having celebrity cameos. I didn't bat an eye because none of them gave a wink to the camera. They actually had developed characters that were involved in the show. You have Ed Sheeran on there to just mention that it's a brand new song that he's humming there with the Banner brothers of the Lannisters, and he winks at the camera, essentially. That's essentially what it was, and I think that's a slap in the face to every Game of Thrones fan out there. And frankly, I think Benioff and Weiss should be ashamed of themselves.
All right, so here's the funny thing about that. That seems like the overwhelming opinion, right? Everybody, Ed Sheeran is a laughingstock of the world because he was, he was on the biggest show in television. And he was laughed off the air, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? I'm about to drop a little bit of information on you.
Give me a break. Ed Sheeran.
Did you know that Ed Sheeran is the #1 artist in the entire world on Spotify? In the entire world. So Ed Sheeran just said, oh, you're going to laugh at me because of some fucking dragons and ice zombies? Fuck you. I'm the biggest musician in the entire world.
I mean, he had to get Bieber to perform one of his songs. He couldn't even perform it. Bieber took it. I mean, what has he done? Please.
The voices of few are not always the voices of many, and that's really all I have to say about that.
I hear that you have a plethora of notes. Let's get into Kristian's favorite segment that I came up with. Jaye Williams' stream of consciousness notes. I'm ready when you are.
These are your Schmoes Know live show stream of consciousness notes brought to you by sitesoundpod.com. Makuga doing this great Ken impression at the top. What the hell is this desk? It's so awkward. Kristian's back looks great. From this angle, Makuga looks nervous. What's he doing with his hands? Josh looks great. He's been participating in chess day. Just realized that some of these notes are homoerotic. What the hell? Makuga with the Pennywise band pull? I like that. What is that couch? Where's the curtain? Classic Kristian rant. Great throw to Brett. It's just a cough is the new it's just a thing. Who's breathing into the mic, Rocha? I saw Stardust with an ex-girlfriend. I fell asleep and hated it. Anyone ever had that? Seen it with an ex and had a shitty point of view of the movie?
Revenge of the Sith, I mean.
This episode is fucked, and I love it. Damn, Joel spitting fire from the jump for this fall preview. Cal was dreaming. Oh, Cody with the split screen. What is this, J.D. Salinger cast? I just realized I'm a little drunk while I'm watching this. Where's Ken? Cops are doing a fantastic job with this interview, even though I don't know who that guy is. Oh, now Kristian doesn't like living in the past. This Joker talk is what I wish movie talk was sometimes, whatever that means. Kristian, I've fallen off bikes before. I'm convinced that Kristian doesn't like any animals. I'm pissed. Why did everyone but Kristian want to jump ship because they were running a little long? And that is your Schmoes Know live show stream of consciousness notes brought to you by sitesoundpod.com.
That was actually something that I texted you, and it was a stupid text. I said,
what, Kristian falling off bikes?
A little... No.
Okay. You ever fallen off a bike before?
I have, yes. I've run into a fence and fell. Anyway,
my grandmother taught me how to ride a bike, and she fell over the handlebars while she was teaching me.
Classic. Sounds like a YouTube video I've seen. So I texted you, and I was actually a little angry. Not gonna lie. I was gonna rant about it on the show. I asked you, why the hell does it matter if they go over a few minutes? Like,
yeah.
So what? Why is everyone freaking out? It's their show. They decide when. And then I realized that, you know, some people go to screenings after, like Ellis. Ellis went to a screening after, so they do have things to do. Even so, like, when that show ends, it's 11 p.m., and I'm thinking there's no way they have to be done for the night, right? Well, they're not. They still have screenings and things to go to. Sometimes they get a chance to go out to eat together, but anyway, it doesn't sound like they do that anymore.
I don't know. I remember back to an episode where Cobster kind of was drunk a little bit on the episode, and then they went out and had dinner and had more drinks after, and that's like the only instance I actually remember that. But how long do we think, not everybody, but Kristian, how long do we think Kristian could have done the show for? Because I think he was game to continue on. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we could have, how much did we go over this week? We could have easily had,
7 minutes.
We could have easily had what happened last week, which was, it was like 2 hours, 15 minutes, and they didn't even know that they were going long. I mean, I think you have a point to this 3-hour show on the 300th episode. I think this is warm-ups. I think Kristian's wondering if he can do it. He's trying to build up his endurance here. I think that's exactly what's going on.
He's going to take a podcast Viagra? What's he going to do, listen to Sight and Sound to get ready for it?
Yeah, maybe. Please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. anyway, I don't care. They can run long all they want, but I realized that I couldn't even rant about it because that would sound stupid. And anyway,
well, look, this was a fantastic episode. We talked about it at the top of this show. That this was the type of episode where I was upset that it was going off the air. This was, in my opinion, hands down. And look, we're honest. We don't like it. This was one of the best Schmoes Know shows that I've seen since we've started. And I don't know exactly what it was, but I think, and I want your take on this, I think that it was just a healthy dose of chaos. I said it in my notes. The episode was fucked from the beginning in the best way possible, and I loved it. What do you think?
Yeah, it 100% was. And I think I have said it recently. I remember Kristian's first time back a few weeks back. I remember saying that it was one of the best episodes that I've seen in a long time. So I'm not saying that I haven't used that before recently, but this one was just fantastic. This trumps all of those that came before it. It flew by, and when I see episodes like this that just fly by, and then I compare it to like what we got with the Adi Shankar, and don't get me wrong, I have loved some interviews on the show, and I think that interviews are crucial, especially for building relationships and becoming a bigger show, but sometimes it's just great to have zero interruptions. It's just people yelling and bringing up whatever they want to talk about. And this was a more structured episode. I can't imagine what this episode would have been like if they didn't have to spend an hour and a half on the fall movie preview, because then it might have just been perfect. But and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not saying that detracted from the episode. I'm just saying that's how good it was.
Well, look, I know we have a lot to get through on this episode, but I do want to ask you one question, and I think we've talked about this off air before a little bit, that at one point they dropped the moniker of the Schmoes Know movie show because they did want to be a little bit more free to talk about other things, whatever they want. And obviously they do have a diehard fan base of movie lovers, and their entire careers are wrapped up in movies. So I don't think we would ever not get movie stuff, but how would you feel if one day the Schmoes Know Show just did away with the whole like moniker, the themed show, where they're just strictly held to this sort of overarching theme of a show like a fall movie preview, and they just sat down and shot the shit for 2 straight hours? How would you feel about that?
Well, I mean,
essentially Sight and Sound After Party.
I don't think we're ever really far from that.
I don't either,
because like having a fall movie preview is actually different than like the weekly occurrence of like Warner Brothers news. Like next week's episode could come out and it could be about Ben Affleck or something, and they'll discuss that for 30 minutes, and then everything else is just whatever. I mean, since they removed movies from their show, I think we're always very close to that. So if they ended up dropping that altogether, I think it would just kind of be very similar, because they just talk about movies anyway. That's the genius of what Schmoes Know is, and that's like that right there is what separates it from everything else going on at Collider. It's the more freeform, it's the casual, it's the more expressive and personal, and like it has all of those labels already. So I don't think that, going back to your question, addressing your specific question, I don't think my feelings would change absolutely at all, because it would pretty much still all be right there.
Right. And I agree with that 100%. I wanted to sort of just entertain the idea. I think, and I could be wrong about this would have to be something that we address with Mark or Kristian, but I just feel like the show has the label on it, fall movie previews, whatever, Wonder Woman preview, whatever it's going to be. But they always either consciously or just subconsciously build in this wild card, whether it be somebody like Brett and letting Brett do his thing. As much as they joke about it, like, oh, you've only got a minute and a half, they know how fire Brett is. I think they're very well informed of that. And I think just having that built-in wild card element is sort of what makes the show so special. You never, ever, ever know where you're going to get. Sometimes that's bad. but sometimes it's golden like it was this week.
And I'm fine with the question. I mean, it's an interesting idea. And again, going back to the thing I've said a million times, that they can have their own separate show, Kristian and Mark, something more relaxed like that, shorter time span. But at the same time, they have absolutely zero reason to ever drop that label.
Right, of course.
Like, there's no reason why Kristian would walk into that office and be like, I think we're done with the movies.
We're just going to number these, yeah.
Because that's what they're doing anyway. They're talking about movies, and that's what it is. So they could consciously say, we don't have to do this, but they would end up doing it anyway, and that's just what it would be. And that's how genuine the show is.
Of course,
so.
and I agree with you 100%.
Again, the whole setup thing, I don't really need to talk about it. I think it's nothing as far as it's nothing to get upset about. It's an interesting talking point. I just want to make fun of it though, because we heard that Kristian doesn't live in the past. He so desperately wants to go back to Toad Hop. He also made it a point to say that they have to consciously think about their podcast listeners. Meanwhile, they introduced this whole third bar quotations thing with Cody, and then they introduced split screen into the very same episode that Kristian brings this up. So I just wanted to make fun of it, but obviously
It's also funny that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is one of his favorite movies, and that entire movie is literally about living in the past. So
excellent point. And I'm not taking anything away from this move at all, because I do feel that it had a lot to do with why the episode was so great. It was entertaining when we got the split screen stuff, hearing them go back and forth about it. It was all very entertaining. I think they were all feeling it, and they were all reminiscent of Toad Hop, with the exception of Joelle, because she wasn't there. But it definitely bred new life into the show, and so I thought it was great, and that's all I really need to say.
So that's it. We're done with the episode.
No, I want you to say whatever you want.
Well, look, I think I agree, and it's funny. Yes, of course, it was different at the beginning. It was different. I was having to get used to the camera angles, the positioning of everyone. There is an unsung hero, I think, of this entire episode. Do you know who has to work extra hard now? And that's Cody Hall. Like, because everything is so single person filling a frame, he's got to do way more switching, which I think is funny just to think about. But yeah, look, the longer the episode went on, I don't know for a fact, and I have no way to prove this, but I think the quality, the increased quality of the show had a little bit to do with how everything was set up. I have nothing to back that up with, but I really do feel like they felt a lot more comfortable on the show.
Yes.
Except for Makuga. He seemed nervous. I don't know why he was doing that. He was very... Did you notice that at all? Did you notice how he was like fidgety? He didn't know where to look and how to act, really?
No.
Okay. Go back and watch it and just try to pick up on it.
I'm not going to go back and watch it.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing, I don't know what the platform would be. I think it might be impossible, but I wish that, and maybe they did do it, and I'm not even going to bring it up, because the second I mention this, people are going to be down my throat. That actually happened in episode blah blah. I'm not even going to bring it up.
Okay.
Kristian's first interaction with that speaks volumes as to how qualified I am to host this show. Kristian's first time with Joelle. I could make a joke. Yeah, I could make a joke about it, but I'm actually more amazed than anything that this was the first time that they actually spent time together on air. How about that?
Yeah, it's very odd, just because I had never picked up on that, really, especially because I think I remember back to the Beardo episode where Kristian was essentially the one that pretty much brought in Joelle, so to speak, and the fact that they hadn't really interacted on the show before was surprising to me. Before I forget it, I do want to bring up the fact and address the comments that were made by Kristian about him not liking me.
I love this because you and we have our own private conversations off air that no one is privy to. We have our interactions with the people at Schmoes. We're actually very open about our conversations, but we still keep
100%,
things private. this was something that I don't think the three of us have ever addressed.
Oh, no.
And maybe I've made a joke about it on here, but as far as I can tell, because there was shock factor into hearing him address this, I cannot wait to hear what you have to say.
Well, it was funny because I'm actually okay. Here's the funny thing about it is I'm actually relieved that he said it, and also a little bit bummed out because we all daydream of the first time that we get asked to be on Don't Be a Beardo, and I would have loved to have told the story for the first time of, well, actually, Kristian didn't want me on the show to begin with. Like that would have been a great story to tell. But now if I told it, it would be like, well, yeah, we know that. Look, this is something that I was privy to 100%. It's hilarious to me. Like I legitimately do think it's funny that's the case. But I'm also honored more than anything. Like I appreciate it. Obviously, I appreciate the opportunity, him taking a chance, you vouching for me in general. But it means a lot to me that I've seemed to have won him over one way or another. Look, and it also goes back to the fact that what I said on my very first episode here is that my goal when coming aboard After Schmoe was purely 100% to give you guys the show that I think that Ryan and I both think that you guys deserve.
How you doing?
And I think, yeah, I was just relieved. I was relieved that he said that, but I also just thought it was hilarious, just people's take on it. Like people were like, especially people that know us and spend time with us on Sight and Sound. In addition to this podcast, they're like, "What? Like, where did this come from?" It was just funny to me.
And again, this goes back to Kristian just being ass backwards this past week because the reasoning that he gave for not liking you. I don't even have to say it's my thing. All of Schmoeville thought the same thing. And I don't even have to address it. But as soon as he said that, I got texts, I got messages, I got commented and things.
I got tweets, yeah.
Everyone in Schmoeville thought the exact same thing, and they're just shaking their heads.
Yeah. Well, it's also funny to me, just a little bit even more behind the scenes thing. Like one of the things that we laugh about a lot, you and I, and that you've said all the time is you're like, oh, you're the guy that everybody likes, blah 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 blah, and leave it to Kristian to be the one guy that was like, well, I kind of don't like that guy. Like it's just kind of hilarious.
It never fails, but yeah, I think part of Kristian's problem, he's had all these antibiotics. Kristian, you need a good probiotic. You need to help balance your body back out. You've been sick, and antibiotics are good for curing you of bronchitis, but they also wreak havoc on your body. You need a good probiotic. We need you to get back to being balanced because you're just all over the place. But I loved how he addressed and confronted everyone at the table. He confronted every single person at the table. And I'm giving Joel a pass, but I actually wish there were more people in the studio there for this. Nobody listens to our show. And I don't mean our fan base, our listeners, our friends.
Yeah, he spun that a weird way, didn't he? He was like, nobody's listening to their show. And then he had to go back on it. That was funny to me.
But I'm glad he did this because I get someone like Makuga. Makuga doesn't need to listen to our show every week.
He actually had a good point, his rebuttal to it.
But I don't think Ellis should be able to say that.
I agree.
Because it's his show and it's his network, and let's face it, he gets paid for our YouTube plays, okay? That's money that goes into his pocket every time we put up a show on YouTube. I don't know what the algorithm is nowadays, but we're making him money. So I don't like that. I don't like that about it, and Kristian's absolutely right. It shouldn't have to think about how frustrating it is that we're hardly ever plugged on Twitter and things like that, and we talk about that stuff on our own. So I'm glad that Kristian was finally calling people out for not listening to the show.
Well, yeah. I mean, to go back to your whole guest point, look, I'm not one for champion, oh, we need a guest all the time. In fact, I do think it's a sort of a badge of honor that we wear that our show is as successful as it is, and it's just been you and I. We've never had a guest up until this point. And
thank God.
I think one of the other things to say about it is look, we don't want to just go after guests all the time. Like, hey, will you do our podcast? That'd be great if you could do our podcast. Oh, you don't have time? Okay. Like, it would be great if people inside the studio listened to our podcast and said, you know what? I actually want to come on there and address something. Like, that would be ideal for me.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Something else I wanted to breeze through. Oh, that's why I was going to bring up Umberto. I was very put off by Makuga's reaction to After Schmoe in general, because he acted like he had never heard of the show before, and he's actually been a guest on the show.
Right. You had
so
to go to
Kristian was
work.
like, oh, they like you on there. He's like, oh, really? Maybe I'll have to listen. This isn't new for you, Makuga. I'm hoping that was just a joke or a bit, because I was like, we've talked. Like, we had an interview, and we're supposed to be friendly now. But anyway.
Well, I did appreciate his take on it, and I do get it to a certain extent, where he pretty much said, like, athletes don't like to listen to the sports talk radio, and that's essentially the vibe that...
I actually don't buy that.
Well, that's sort of the vibe.
I think athletes watch ESPN just like everyone else.
Right. I mean, that's sort of the vibe that we bring to the table, but like I've already said, I think if they were brought into the show and they did listen to the show and maybe they got it, like, for instance, let's just say we called in or something like that and we were giving somebody shit, like, to them it could just come across as like, oh, these guys are a bunch of asshole douchebags, and it's like, no, that's their bit. Like, that's what they do, play along with it and be a part of the character. And that is a great point, because last week I called in, that might have been the reason why it was a little off, because no one there had context. Kind of like me when I called into the show. No, but seriously though, anytime that I'm calling in and you have someone like Clark Wolf or you have Joel sitting right there, if they don't know who we are, then they're not privy to what we might be doing, or like I don't like that idea. Maybe that's me just feeling entitled, but I don't like the idea of calling in, being the host of this recap show that recaps every single thing that these people do, and for them to not be vaguely aware, that's a little annoying, especially since I've been here. Yeah, for instance, I agree 100%.
I've been here.
We know. So I just think that, I don't know, that's just something that I'm apprehensive about. Like, I want everybody to love me. I want to be loved by everyone. And and for somebody to be like, who the fuck does this guy think he is talking shit about? It's like, guys. Like, I remember when Riley when Kristian told Cal to get off the couch or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, they say that's a thing that they do." I was like, come on, man. That was the joke I was talking about at the beginning. Like, I commented on his Instagram post with that, and then I thought about it. I was like, he might think I'm some fucking weirdo that's like, what is he saying? And it's a bummer. It would be nice to have people a part of the jokes.
Excellent point. Okay, enough about us. I wanted to, something I'm fascinated by, and this came up again last night. I realized that Kristian I don't think Kristian thinks Ellis is funny. Kristian never laughs at Ellis. Have you noticed that?
I think they're with each other a lot of the time, and it does have to be said that there's something within comedy that's like not laughing to things, like being stoic.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. They laugh at each other, especially when they're bantering back and forth. But when Mark's trying to make a joke more to the audience, maybe he won't laugh. I think that's more of my take.
Right. The reason why I bring this up is because there was some great back and forth at the top where Ellis kept interrupting Kristian. Kristian was getting so frustrated because Ellis was all about the segue and all about the joke. And then they talked about hosting the Schmoedown together, and obviously that's a thing where Ellis will crack a joke and Kristian doesn't laugh. He's moving the Schmoedown forward. But even when they're on Movie Talk, he never laughs at him. So I don't know. I thought about our relationship as hosts. Let's talk about Brett Sheridan, motherfucker. Brett, in all caps, is back. I was so happy to see him. I was so happy to see you, Brett, because you're listening. Hello, Mama Sheridan. I know you're listening, hopefully. Look, Brett was fire, but he was also completely underutilized. Where the hell are you in that fall preview, Brett Sheridan? I needed you. You had some really great moments. You were able to interject. I loved what he was doing, giving Kristian shit, just making fun of, oh, is this Toad Hop enough? Fucking great. Loved seeing Brett back. What'd you
Brett
have?
was, I mean, if you couldn't tell by this episode alone, his appearance on this episode was sorely missed on the show. He is just so brilliant. Like, when they tried to joke that they were going to end up cutting his segment, and he just sat there essentially emotionless, like his heart had been ripped out. It's fucking hilarious. Here's the only thing I'll say to your point. Yes, I agree. It would have been great to at least make it some sort of bit, and they somewhat did a little bit, to bring Brett into all these movies that he just didn't give a shit about. Like, I think that's hilarious. But also, if the show is already running over time, I mean, you can only imagine how much worse it would have been with Brett going off subject and this and that. So
I'm trying to change my mentality on Brett, whereas I'm not as dismissive when it comes to involving him in the movie discussion, because
no, you would be.
His progression, he's shown that he is getting more involved. He actually cares a whole lot more, and I think he's really dedicated to actually learning more and watching more, and he's definitely shown that. So I know that what you said was funny, but I actually want to hear his take on some of these fall movies, and that's sort of where I'm getting with Brett. And I mean, I think we could have an interesting discussion as to where, like, if that goes far enough, are we going to lose the Brett that we love? I think it's too early to say, but I also just don't agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually wanted to hear more from him, but when he was there, he was good. So overall, no complaints.
The last thing that I'll say about him, in sort of being involved in that capacity, Brett sort of represents the casual person, right? I mean, he's just not as inundated with all of this movie knowledge and stuff, this, especially the behind the scenes, the news stories and this and that everybody else is. In the same vein, Ken is kind of that guy too. He doesn't go out and see a ton of movies. He's obviously embedded within this community because he works at Collider, but Brett is sort of that same take, just he is a caricature of himself, and it's great. It just provides, not only does it provide that perspective, but it also provides just a fantastic character in general, just a ton of laughs. And I think in the future, I would definitely love to see him be more involved with those sort of discussions, but maybe not specifically for this episode.
Where was Ken?
I don't know. Let's talk about the other movie previews. Why can't I talk?
I don't really have it. There's nothing to say about their discussion.
I agree. I basically took no notes throughout the entire movie, actual movie preview discussion, just because it was just interesting dialogue. It was just an interesting talk, so to speak. It was just a weird show in that sense. We didn't get any Stardust reactions. We didn't get as much banter back and forth with the Wangers as well. It was just it's crazy for an episode to be this good. There was a ton of actual substantial content going on, substantial discussion going on in the episode.
Yeah, like a couple weeks ago, they tweeted out that they needed Stardust reactions on favorite Brad Pitt movies, and I did one, and haven't seen them utilize any of it.
Right.
I don't know what's going on. I also don't even know why they wanted favorite Brad Pitt movies to begin with, because as far as I know, he's not in any movies coming out. So whatever. Maybe I dreamt that. I don't know why I did that.
He's too busy smoking weed, painting, and listening to Bon Iver all the time.
That's true. Yeah, when it comes to notes, they're thin now because, again, it was so much discussion. I have 2 notes left if we were doing Ryan Snelling's stream of consciousness notes.
Let's do it.
My second to last one is Pumbaa doesn't sound like Pumbaa. He did the impression at the top, and I didn't think it sounded like Pumbaa at all.
What if it was just some guy that got... How would we know?
Yeah. Lion King is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
You like that?
And I know Pumbaa very well, and I don't think that's the real Pumbaa.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have no context. You could tell me that Beardo was Pumbaa, and I would say, okay, that's cool. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And actually, I'm not going to reveal my last line because it's funnier if we end the show on it. So, are we forgetting anything? What else do we need to talk about?
I don't think so. Look, we had another Makuga walk-off, which I thought was great. I am loving this bit. We talked about it a few weeks ago, I think, just talking about the brief Makuga appearance. Fantastic. Don't know where Perry was a absolute tragedy. I don't know where Ken was. Also
don't know where Robert Meyer Burnett was.
Yeah, maybe they're all together. Maybe they're all hanging out, playing like Scrabble.
Maybe they started another show.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you never know. No, man.
You know what? That is something I have never ever considered.
Just people going rogue.
For the past 3 years that I've been watching
than Mark and Kristian.
There's like big entities. There's Stuckman, there's FlickPick, there's Schmoes Know, there's Screen Junkies, and I know that there are other branches, but that's my grouping. Like that's what I watch. I know other people watch like Beyond the Trailers and all that kind of stuff, but that's me. So I've never once considered like Robert Meyer Burnett being like, oh, I'm going to start my own show and I'm going to bring Perry over. And like that is fascinating to me. I would love to see that happen as long as it didn't tear people apart or tear relationships apart. Excuse me.
You know, that's an interesting thing you're bringing up just because, so this is obviously a very oversaturated space. I think that's safe to say. There's a lot of people doing the movie discussion.
We should stop podcasting. Really.
There's we bring 2 other things to the table, but regardless, it is an oversaturated sort of market, so to speak. But I could easily see people trying to say, you know what, let's do something similar to the Schmoes Know live show and this and that. In fact, we even have our after party was sort of inspired by the live show to a certain extent, but things sort of take their own shape. And I think that just, you know, that people might say, well, aren't you 2 guys doing a podcast? Yeah, but it's completely different. So shut the fuck up. It's shut up, invisible person.
I think that's what I like so much about, and that's what I respect about Jason Inman. And I know that's kind of random, but he's like the one that's like homemade, self-sustaining. He doesn't need to be on any of these other shows because, I mean, his production company is literally his name, Jawin. And so I think that's pretty cool that he does that. So I know that Perry has been turning it up a notch when it comes to her own YouTube channel. I know Wendy has the Movie Couple channel.
I'm a Perry subscriber. That's right.
Oh, good. So finally, my last note to you. How did you feel about seeing Cal's genitals?
Well, I love dog dick.
So,
hashtag Team Dong. Dog Dong. It's late over here. I have to be at work. I have to be at work in 5 hours. What do you want from me? Where's Robert Meyer Burnett? Where's Ken? Where's Perry?
I had this whole thing prepared about how I refuse to own male dog.
Own male dong?
No. Male dogs because of their dog.
Well, shit, you don't want to see what female dog genitalia looks like. I'll show you next time you come over here.
Well, you can't see that. I have this.
Well, you can see it. You can definitely see it. I'll show it to you.
I feel socially awkward rubbing a dog's belly when I'm that close to his genitals.
So just to leave off one story, I remember when I was in elementary school, our art teacher rode horses. and
I already know where this is going.
And she brought her horse for like, I don't know, some hobby day. I don't know what it was.
Hobby day?
Whatever it was. And she brought her horse and we all went outside and it had a massive fucking boner. And that's all we could look at. We were like, what is wrong with it? Why does it look like that?
What is that?
What's it wearing that for? And they were just like, kids, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it? Well, addressing it's making it worse.
I would love for you to go back in time, if we could. Go back in time to that moment and scream, why is it wearing that?
Well, shout out to Miss Buchanan. That's all I'll say.
I feel like that's some Wild West character. Now, Miss Buchanan.
You're thinking of Tannen. Isn't his name Tannen from... I don't know. What am I talking about?
Where can the people find you, Jay?
You can hear me talking
online.
You can hear me talking about horse schlong on my social media at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. Also, find us every single week, multiple times a week, on Sight and Sound, wherever podcasts are found. Also, our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button for content regarding music, movies, and television if you haven't gotten enough of it so far. I also do a music show every single Friday. Make sure to check it out. Ryan, where can they find you?
If you're listening to this sign-off right here, right now, that means RB3 completed the podcast, upload properly. You can find me on Twitter.
What the hell?
What?
What?
Yeah.
Why can't we get it?
We'll do that next week. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. You can listen to me on Sight and Sound talking music, movies, and television. Come hang out with us. The link is in the description, our YouTube channel, and also our t-shirts, sightsoundpod.com. I'm going to get out of here because Jaye Williams needs to go to bed. Bye-bye.